Okay, guys, we had a worksheet I passed out today trying to get you to understand that some of the problems that are going to come up on your quiz next week aren't going to just be here's a problem, solve it, but it's going to be in a word problem. So we have to get used to language and interpreting what it says. So I'm going to go through 4 problems off of that worksheet, and then you will have 5 to practice on Monday. Okay, so this was the decimal problems, adding, subtracting, multiplying worksheet that I handed out today, 9/14/18. So we started with number 2 in period 1, and Micah had $10.52 after he left the bookstore. If he bought a book for $6.39, how much money did he have before he went to the bookstore? So that is the first time I read the problem, but that's not the end time. I'm going to read it a second time, and now I'm going to look for some numbers and try to figure out what it is they're asking me to solve for, look for words that might tell me whether I'm going to add or subtract or multiply or divide, or literally what's going on in the problem. So what I see here is it says Micah had $10.52 after he left the bookstore. And if he bought a book, so he bought a book for $6.39. Now here comes the question. How much money did he have before he went to the bookstore? So basically, you enter a bookstore and you have some money in your pocket. So that's your money before. Then you purchase a book. So when you make a purchase, that means you're going to have to take away from your money. So that's subtraction. And then how much money did you take away? Well, you took away the let's just do it in words. The cost of the book, And the result of paying out for that book is you have money that's left over. So I think money left over. Okay. Now, what I noticed in this problem is that there are 2 numbers we can substitute in. For the cost of the book, it says that it was $6.39. How much money did he have left over after buying that book? He had $10.52. So in order for me to figure out how much money he had before, I'm going to have to take those 2 numbers, the cost of the book and what he had left over, and they actually are going to end up getting combined. And another way I can tell that is I want to get the money before by itself, and the opposite of subtracting would be adding. So here's what my problem is going to look like. I'm going to take those 2 numbers. Now, when it's money, it's so easy to add because you have to line up the decimal points, right? And there's only 2 digits allowed. And we're going to add them together and see what we come up with. So I get 11, I get 8 and 1 is 9, I get a 6, I get a 1. So I like to write my answers as sentences that are in context for what the problem was all about. So I would say Micah had $16.91 before he went to the bookstore. Again, the reason why we write out our answers as a sentence is because we want to get context to what does 1691 mean. And we also want to make sure that we have our labels. And I'm stealing words right from the question itself. So that would be how I solved the first one. So remember, you are not copying these notes down. You're just watching and getting a feel for them. All right, now I already pre-wrote the problem. So let's go to the second page and the second problem. This was problem 3 on the worksheet. Noah measured the length of 3 pieces of cloth. The measurements were 4.29 feet, 3.6 feet, and $2.34 feet. What was the total length of the 3 pieces of the cloth? Okay, so we got this kid. He's got 3 pieces of cloth. They tell us what they each measure. And the question, the big question is, what was the total length of the 3 pieces of cloth. Okay, so let's see what we got. We've got 4.29 feet, we've got 3.6 feet, and we've got 2.34 feet. So one of the things that's common with each of those numbers, can you see it? Can you see it? It is, actually let me use a highlighter. Feet, feet, feet. So sometimes I like highlighting that word to remind myself you better put that in your answer. Now, total says what do you have all together? So this turns out to be a simple math problem. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's take my 3 numbers and I'm going to be, let's get some color. It's Friday night. So we take 4.29, 3.6, and yes, we're going to need to line up decimal points. And we take 2.34. So we do run into a bit of an issue, and that issue is our numbers need to be the same length in order for us to add or subtract. So I'm going to annex that 0 on the 3.6 so that all the numbers have 2 digits after the decimal point. So I'm just going to go ahead and add. I'm going to put my decimal point down first, and I get 13. Let's see, I get 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's see, I get 5, and 5 is 10. Okay, so I'm going to write my answer, and I'm going to say, what was the total length of the 3 pieces of cloth? Noah measured a total of 10 and 23/100 feet of cloth. So I bring back Noah, I bring back the action he was doing, and then I bring the words that are from the question, total, okay? And I didn't write total length because feet kind of indicates that anyway. So Noah measured a total of 10.23 feet of cloth. Okay? All right, let's try another one. This one's a little tricky. Now, this is number 4. Anna bought a van that holds 20.75 gallons of gas and gets an average of 15.5 miles per gallon. How many miles can she expect to go on a full tank? All right, so I'm going to just kind of write down some things that I see. She's got a van and it holds 20 gallons of gas and gets an average of 15 miles per gallon. So how many miles can she expect to go? So how many miles can she expect to go on a full tank? So I need my answer to be in miles. I have one answer that's in gallons, and I have one answer or one number that's in gallons and one number that's in miles per gallon. So how can I get those labels to end up becoming just miles? All right. So this is something that I kind of mentioned in the beginning, that people kind of had a hard time in the past dealing with this idea of labels and how labels can help me set up a math problem. So I've got these two values. I've got the 20.75 gallons. That's the amount of gas that she purchased that fills up her tank. And she's got 15.5 miles she gets per gallon. Per is a fancy way of saying divide by gallon. Now, as a reminder, I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting. If I had 2 divided by 2, that gives me the answer of 1. This idea of something divided by itself equals 1 actually holds true for words as well. So if I have gallons over gallons, that also is going to equal 1. So what happens in a problem like this, what we're going to do to figure out how many miles, that's the only label I want left, I'm going to multiply these. Notice you have gallons in the numerator and you have gallons in the denominator. So what ends up happening is when I multiply gallons and miles on top divided by gallons on the bottom, the gallons disappear. And that's the only way to get these labels to go away, is to multiply those two numbers. Remember, I can't add gallons to miles per gallon. That's like saying I'm going to add cats and dogs and get cat dogs. That doesn't make sense at all, okay? You can either get cats or you can get dogs. So with adding and subtracting, labels have to be the same in order to add them or subtract them. But when I have different types of labels, I can use multiplication to get rid of the one I don't want anymore. So we have a multiplication problem. So this is a good review of what we did on lesson 3.3.3.4. And we're going to take our two numbers and we're going to pretend there's no decimals. Remember, put the shorter one on the bottom. It's going to give you less rounds of multiplication to do. So I get 25. 35 and 2 is 37. I get 0 and 3 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10. Now here's beautiful. I put down a placeholder because now I'm multiplying by the second 5 that's in the tens place, so he's really 50. And I'm going to get exactly the same numbers I just did because I had multiplied by 5 the time before. So 5, 7, 3, 0, 1. Do not forget that placeholder. So now I'm going to multiply by the one that's in the hundreds column, so I can't put anything in the ones or the tens. And I can only start in the hundreds, and then I multiply. And I love multiplying by ones. It's so easy. 1 times 5, 1 times 7, 1 times 0, 1 times 2. And finally, I get to add up. So I get a 5, I get a 12. Let's say I get a 10, 15, 16. I get a 10, 11, I get a 2, I get a 3. Now, if you remember back in the video, what we said you needed to do was to go back to the original numbers and count up how many digits came after the decimal point all together, and we had 3 digits. So we're going to go to the back of our number, and we're going to loop ourselves 1, 2, 3 places, and that's where the decimal is going to go. So our solution is Anna, only one N. Anna can expect to go 321 and 625 thousandths. Now remember what the label is left over, miles on a full tank. So again, in my answer, I steal a lot from the question. I use a lot of the words from the question. Okay? Fabuloso. One more, and then that's it. Okay, this one was Roberto. He hikes 21.48 miles on one weekend. The next weekend, he hikes 30 miles. How much less is the distance he hiked on the first weekend than the distance he hiked on the second weekend? I have to tell you, that is probably one of the worst last sentences of a problem I've ever seen. I think there could have been a way that they wrote that was so much shorter and sweeter. But I digress. Let's see what we got. We've got 21 point, go away, you think. We got 21 and 4,800 miles. That was on one weekend. The next weekend, he hiked 30 miles. So these numbers match. That's kind of a hint. It's either going to be an adding or subtracting problem. And here comes the giveaway with the question. How much less is the distance? Now, that word right there, y'all know that means subtract. Now, all of this other stuff I could highlight, but what a pain this is. So basically, we have two numbers. We're going to take the two numbers and we're going to subtract them. It told us to subtract them. So we don't really need to read all the rest of that gook about first weekend and second weekend. All we need to remember is, if we're going to subtract, we got to put the larger number on top and the smaller number underneath. We line up decimal points, and here's where we run in a bit of a problem like we did in another. We don't have the right amount of digits to do this problem, so we're going to annex those zeros, and we're going to end up subtracting. So I, again, like to put my decimal point down first. That's just me. And then I don't have enough to take 8 away from 0. So I go next door, but nobody's home. Go next door, and nobody's home. So I'm going to borrow all the way, or rename from the 3 that's in the tens. So I'm going to take 1 away, leaving me 2 tens, and I'm going to change it into 10 ones. But that doesn't help me way over in the hundreds column. So I'm going to take away 1 whole number, which leaves me 9, and I'm going to change it into 10 tenths. Fabuloso. However, it does not help me in the hundredths column. So I'm going to take away 1/10, and I'm going to turn it into 10 hundredths. Finally, I can do my subtraction. So 10 take away 8 is 2. 9 take away 4 is 5. 9 take away 1 is 8. So what we can say is Roberto hiked. Now I'm going to use the same language they used in the question. Hiked 8.52 miles less on the first weekend than on the second weekend. I think that's a little bit more to the point. So there you go, my friends. There's 4 examples, and you're going to see that when we do practice on Monday, they're going to be very similar to these types of problems. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you make sense of some word problems. See you guys on Monday.